Hey guys, new video here. I wanted to go over Abberath Hooves leveling. I got a lot of questions about this in stream, so I thought I'd just make the video now so you guys can see it. Bottom left corner of the screen, what you're gonna see, like down here, is just this is from the race when I had like twinked out gear, and it's basically exactly the same way I level every single character past the first character of the league. And the reason I like this so much is because when you're streaming, what you pay the most attention to is your chat, right? And so this build, I think, allows me to mindlessly get to end game without having to like really even look at the screen. I can just like hang out with chat. It's very fun, very relaxing, and I think it's pretty strong. Not the fastest overall, but to me, it's the most fun possible. And so the core item is the Abberath Hooves right here. What it does is every step that your character takes, it does a little mini explosion, and that's called Abberath Fury. And basically that thing, when you add things like added cold, added lightning, increased crit, control destruction. We'll go over the gems a little bit later, but when you add these things, it makes every step do so much damage, especially when you scale it with other kinds of twink gear while you're leveling. So we'll go over all of that, and so you can watch like kind of the gameplay in the bottom left. As you can see, like it's just a lot of Quicksilver flashes, just keep running around, and it's quite smooth. So first, you're gonna get the boots at level 12. So you might think, okay, what do I do until then? What I do is I get 2 life sprigs to start at level 1. I get some 7 league steps and maybe like a tabula. And then from there, as you're upgrading, you can get like maybe some white Quicksilver flasks that are just like blue. These don't require skill any levels. And then I have this one that's like level 4. It's an adrenaline flask. You can also equip a gold rim at level 1, and you can use this all the way through, basically. You don't need to change this at all because it's just so much resist, and that will outweigh really any other like life you might need. 7 leagues don't even really need that much, but I use 2 Parandus Signets, so I don't have to worry about mana at the beginning, so it's kind of nice. At level 5, you can go into a Karui Ward, because with this build, Abberath, what it does is the faster you move, the more steps you take. The more steps you take, the more damage you do, which is why, once again, Quicksilvers are so important. So this gives move speed and like a little bit of strength, but that doesn't really matter too much. I have a movement speed implicit just because it was like super cheap to get, and why not? Every little bit of move speed helps. After that, as you're upgrading, what you're going to do is at level 6, you can put on 2 Screaming Eagles and get 20% increased move speed, and you can swap between these 2 items. And you can swap between Axiom Perpetuums at level 10. How you want to swap those is up to you. You don't have to switch off of Axiom Perpetuums, but I felt that the speed was kind of nice. At level 8, you get the Worm's Molt. Right, Worm's Molt just gives you a little bit of resist, a tiny bit of life, some strength, some int. Not a big deal, but it's something to go in the belt slot until you get a Belt of the Deceiver. From there, I believe at level 12 you can wear Deirdre's Tenure. Until Deirdre's Tenure you can get Loctanial Caresses, but level 12 this gives a lot of spell damage, and that helps a lot. You don't have to get this Corruption. This is just what I was using for the Twink race, and then that helps as well. Going up from there, what you're going to do at level 16, well at level 12 you're going to wear the boots, right? So the boots, I would recommend added cold, added lightning, increased crit, and then Controlled Destruction. Controlled Destruction level 1 is level 18, but the other 3 are level 8. So you can just socket them into your boots like before they're ready to be worn even. And then they'll be ready. What I recommend is buying like the level 1 20% gems, and then for each character you level in a league, if you choose to do this this leveling method, is you can regret them back down to level 1 for your new characters, right? Really cheap for the time invested. Another option you can do is instead of increased crit, you can go increased AoE if you want. That works as well. Also, instead of this or the added cold, you can go onslaught if you don't want to put in your heralds later, but we'll talk about that in a second. So onslaught will make sure that you have 100% uptime on onslaught because you're always going to be killing mobs. And at level 16, you get heralds. When you put on your heralds, These are level 7 and 8, but at level 16 you put them into a tabula. And what you can do is, because obviously you'll have Abberath at this point, you can link your Herald of Ice and your Herald of Thunder to things like added cold, added lightning. Later on at level 38 you can have like increased AoE, but you can also put an onslaught gem with that. So each herald will be a like a pseudo 3 link, and then your heralds will proc the onslaught for you, and then the Abberath you can put back in added cold or your increased critical strikes, or your whichever one that you swapped out. Okay, and so that'll do a lot of damage. What Abberath Hooves does, it's mostly fire damage, but because with the changes to ailments, it is unbelievably easy to shock and freeze enemies. So because of that, you'll notice that my heralds are always going off. If you look at the video right now, you can see Herald of Thunder doing work. And so you'll be a pseudo, like a really bad auto bomber, okay? Until you get more crit later on, and I'll go over skill tree and things like that. So the basic damage dealing abilities here are, once again, Abberath Hooves. Every time you take a step, you do a little mini AoE, and with the added cold, added lightning, increased crits from the gem and the skill tree, you are going to be an auto bomber once you get your 2 heralds inside of a tabula linked, each of them being a 3 link, added cold, added lightning. You can also go like maybe increase crit if you want, but I don't think that's worth it since the base is like so low. And then you can go onslaught, and onslaught, if you look at like the buff bar, when it's going off, you basically have 100% uptime on this gem. Going forward from there, once you get a little bit more leveled up, Belt of the Deceiver is level 20, so the intimidation I believe is like is a pretty big damage boost for it. But if you don't want to get this, if you don't want to use it, you can still use the Worm's Bolt. It's not a big deal. That's like kind of secondary. One thing I forgot to mention is Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. Get 3 of these. This is so much speed in 1 flask, and because you're killing enemies so quickly, you don't really need health flasks. You have 1 for emergencies, but I barely used it in all my time leveling. And so when you get 3 of these, you can just rotate between the flasks and you'll never run out. For your 1 and 2 flasks, right, you have 2 more extra. You can run, once again, a health potion for emergencies. The second one, I prefer Wise Oak for more damages and defense, but you can also run a quartz flask, because the quartz flask in narrow hallways, you will be able to run right through enemies and you won't get blocked. If you stop, you do no damage, but if you run through them, you're always doing damage. So quartz flask or Wise Oak, depending on your preferences. I've used both before. They're totally fine. Nothing really needs to change there. Going from there, when you have this item here, the Griffon is the upgraded version at level 32 of the Screaming Eagle, and it gives you 15% move speed if you killed recently. So if you use 2 of these and you feel your damage is good enough, you can get 30% move speed if you've killed an enemy recently. And that is ridiculously high, so you can go ahead and use that if you want. Once again, Axiom Perpetuums or Toolbore Wands, test them out, see which one you prefer. You might like the massive added cold damage to spells per power charge from 2 Toolborns. You might like the 140-ish crit that you get pretty easily on Axiom Perpetuums, and that might make you feel a little bit better. For me personally, I liked the Griffins because of the speed. It just felt amazing. But I actually liked Axiom Perpetuums, even though they're like level 10, more than Toolborn Wands, because when you're critting more, you're seeing more of your Herald of Ice and your Herald of Thunder, and I really like that interaction right there. So that's about it for the items when you get more and more leveled up. At level 20, Barracks Rings are there. So Barracks Rings add a lot of flat damage. This one has life. This one has a little bit of pro lift there. And this one has a tiny bit of leech as well. So this will add a massive amount of flat damage to your Abberath as well, but not necessary. You can use whatever rings you want. And other than that, let's talk about skill tree. So in the skill tree, there's only a few, there's 3 big sections you want to reach on Abberath, no matter where you start at. If you start at Templar, Witch, Shadow, Ranger, Marauder, it doesn't matter. You're looking for 3 key areas. You want the Templar area right here because you have Discipline and Training, you have Amplify, and you have Elementalist, right? So that's huge. You want to get here. Another point, because like the crit will make your heralds feel so good and it'll make you do so much damage, you want to make sure you go crit. And I don't recommend Elemental Overlord. Go crit here, Annihilation, Blast Radius. You can even get Power Charge if you're using Toolborns and then the spell damage node. Flasks help a lot because you're always using a movement skill flask and then Cruel Prep. So this big cluster right here is great. You also go Heart and Soul. You can go across here and then drop a point here or here for that linkage. After you've made it right here, you can either go across here to Shadow, or you can go across here if you just don't care about, if you're playing softcore, you don't care, you just go Throat Seeker. Go into the Shadow area. This is the third area you're looking for. So you're looking for the crit here, you're looking for the life here, and then that's about it. You can also get Nullification if you want some resist. You can even go into Blood Drinker for more life if you want there. But that's really all you need. Other than that, everything is up to you. Templar, Wish area, Shadow area, no matter where you start, you're just going to go up there. Marauder, you're going to get a bunch of life, and then you're going to slowly chain your way up here into Discipline and Training. Get this, get this, get this. Shadow will obviously get this area first, then the Witch area next, and then the Templar area last. And then the Witch, you can go either way you want. You get the Witch area first, then you go to the life here, and then, you know, it's up to you where you want to go from there. What I always recommend is, you know, the reason you want to make your skill tree like this and not the final skill tree of the actual character that you're going to spec into as your final build is because if, let's say you're doing an attack build, right? And you're like, okay, well, on my attack build, I'm not going to get crit for spells, right? I'm not going to get like Written in Blood or Doomcast because it doesn't benefit my endgame build. What's going to happen if you don't get these like fat spell damage nodes that are very fitting of Abberath's Hooves, Abberath is going to fall off in damage a lot later on. It's going to feel awful if you don't go like the the damages, okay? And what you can do is, if you can afford it, I know it's like, you know, 30, 40 regrets might sound like a lot, but it's, if you're playing a character for any amount of time, it's not that much. So I heavily recommend that you go the Abberath skill tree, Witch, Templar, Shadow, and then spread out from there, and then spend the regrets to respec. You're gonna have a lot more fun leveling, and overall you're gonna get to the you're gonna get to play the character you want faster because you're gonna level faster. And usually that's if you pre-buy gear, you know, that's at level 70. If you have level 20 gems, level 72. If you have 21 gems pre-bought, and then you just switch, you do a full respec, put on your gear, and then after the respec, you are your new character. So as you can see, Abberath is not really that complicated. Forgive me for this tree. This is actually just my Wander tree, so it's not actually the Abberath tree. And little TLDR, Abberath I level the same way every single league. It's the most fun for me. I get to pay attention to Twitch chat more than the game itself. It does a lot of damage. Bosses melt like Vol Oversoul, Weaver. All these things get like pretty much killed before you can even do like one phase. So it's really nice. Other things to consider in here is if you're gonna become an auto bomber and you really like the auto bomber playstyle, at level 53 you can put on a Coming Calamity. And when you have this, you can put your Herald of Thunder, your Herald of Ice, and any 4 support gems you want, and it will only reserve 90% of your mana, and then you're truly an auto bomber, and that's level 53. So very early in the leveling process, you have another 20 levels to go past that to become your real build. Another thing you can do is if you also want to get a little bit crazy with it, you can put on stuff like you know, like the Gull, Headhunter to speed up your leveling process as well. You can put on an Ashes Mirror. If you put on Ashes Mirror, you're going to kill so many mobs that's going to feed into the Herald damages, right? Because it's kind of hard to like scale Heralds, but the Ashes Mirror adds flat lightning to everything. So that's another option you have. I believe Ashes Mirror is level 50 something, so once again, early in the leveling process. Another couple of things you can think about in terms of gems is if you want to go full YOLO, you can do things like you can have an Animated Guardian at level 38. You can have a cast when damage taken, and then a curse setup so that when you do get hit, maybe you cast out a World's Mark for Leech. Maybe you cast out an Elemental Weakness for more damage. Maybe a Temp Chains for survivability or Enfeeble. It's up to you. Other than that, maybe a flame dash to get you around those tight areas, save you some time there. And you can use a Vol skill as well. You can put in a Vol haste, a Vol grace, whatever you'd like. And other than that, that's about it. Not too much else to talk about. And yeah, it's my favorite way to level. I hope you guys, if you have any questions, you can ask me on stream or like in the comments of the video. I know it's like a super unorganized, but people in my chat, they just kept asking about the Abberath. So I felt like if there was a video going through the very basics, then, you know, it wouldn't hurt to have it available to them. All right, thanks guys. Bye.